contractors. Marco Zappacosta is the CEO of Thumbtack, an app that matches local professionals with customers, and he strongly disagrees with the position of Uber and others. Great to have you, Marco. Why the strong disagreement here?
John, thanks for having me. Look, this is a bad practice on top of a bad policy. And if we keep going down this road, we'll never get to the true conversation of how do we set up a future of work that works for all types of workers. This just sort of cements the current structure and creates more carve-outs for opportunistic companies who are spending that kind of money.
Well, I mean, I agree that the current structure doesn't seem to work to provide a safety net and worker protections. We've seen that play out during COVID. But I don't know, you've criticized these gig economy companies for looking for carve-outs in the past. How is that different from the carve-outs for doctors, dentists, podiatrists, insurance brokers, lawyers, architects, private investigators in this law now? Why should those white-collar workers and businesses get carve-outs, but the blue-collar workers who want to have more control over their day shouldn't?
Sure. So in the end, there should be no carve-outs because we have a system that works for all. But just because Uber, et cetera, didn't have the clout to get their carve-outs written into the law doesn't mean we should do a one-off ballot initiative to sort of rewrite another special exemption for just a small class of companies. These folks haven't been coming to the table in good faith. There hasn't been a good conversation about this. I don't see how this pass gets us to that point.
What would an arrangement be that works for all workers? I mean, as you put out there as the, I guess, more desirable solution, is it something that could even happen on a state basis? How far would we be from something like that? We talk about portability of benefits and all these other things like that.
Yeah, you got it. So we've already seen it in healthcare, right? The ACA, what passed almost 10 years ago, 6 years ago, highlighted that, the value in being able to take benefits with you when you left a job. And we on Thumbtack, we saw an enormous influx of new business owners who were able to start their business precisely because they now had access to healthcare on the individual market. So we have proof, and it is true that this is a federal issue as well as a state issue, but California, being the fifth biggest economy, having the sort of these companies headquartered here, has a real opportunity to lead. And really, like, we've abdicated any sort of leadership here. There's a real poverty of ambition with respect to what we're trying to do for our workers here at home in California, as well as setting an example for workers all around the country.
What are the implications for the cost to consumers? Because that's going to be the other argument, that somewhere the cost gets borne, and I assume that's filtering into the debate over this proposition. Certainly.
So if they lose, these sort of delivery and ride-sharing companies lose, they will say that they are not viable and they will threaten to leave. The truth is they're certainly viable, maybe at a lower growth or a lower profitability, a worse economic outcome for the business, but it's still viable. And it's true that the price point to customers may go up, but it may not. We talk about this as if it's some new problem. FedEx had to go through this. They got sued, they lost, and they fixed it. And I don't know about you, but I'm still getting my FedEx packages delivered no problem. So they are making it sound as if this is the end-all, be-all of their existence, when it's really not. It's simply a question of how we want to apportion the rents, the income, the value from these services, and they're trying to withhold more of it to themselves and keep it from their drivers, and that doesn't feel right. And we got to have this conversation in the right way and solve these issues fundamentally for all workers.
Marco, Thumbtack is one of the only tech companies that openly opposes Proposition 22. If it were to be approved, would you change your policies at all, or would you stick with the way you're doing things?
No, we aren't really affected. Our business owners, they have their own companies, they have their own brand names, they set their own prices, they set their own hours. They really are their own businesses using Thumbtack to find more customers. So for us, it's not an issue of whether it'll change how we operate. We're sort of outside the conversation, which I think lets us be a little bit more objective and say, hey, what's right for workers? What's right for the future of work? And going from this sort of two-worker classification system to now potentially a third with what Prop 22 is trying to do is just piling bad on top of bad. We need to recognize that the future of work is going to be different. There's going to be folks who work in all sorts of different arrangements, W-2, independent contractors, go into things, go out. And we need to solve for that categorically.